Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
Oh, holy shit.
On December 2nd, which was Grace's 22nd birthday, Grace's parents began to text her and reach out to her, but Grace never responded to any of their messages. She didn't answer anybody's phone calls, which was definitely weird and not like Grace, because even throughout this whole entire trip, she had stayed very close with them. This is when they reported her missing. Now, the cops immediately began to investigate, and just a week after, on December 8th, the investigators announced that after gathering a bunch of evidence, they believed that Grace was no longer alive. That same day, a 26-year-old man named Jesse Kempson was arrested in charges with Grace's ending of her life. The investigators would later learn that Grace had met Jesse on no other but Tinder. Then the investigators were able to trace Grace's steps with security camera footage from local restaurants and a local hotel that would show Grace's final hours with Jesse. Now, in Jesse's first interview, he appeared to be polite, cooperative, and willing to talk. Jesse told them that he actually hadn't seen Grace since they split that evening.
She may be alive and well, okay, but she might also be dead. Okay? And it could be that you've done it.
However, because the investigators already seen the security camera footage from the City Life Hotel, they knew that Jesse was lying. Investigators saw in the security camera footage that Grace went with Jesse up to his room, and Jesse came back down at some point, but they never saw Grace leave his room. This is when Jesse became the prime suspect in this investigation. The very next day after Jesse was arrested, on December 9th, Grace's body was found in the mountains about 12 miles outside of Auckland. When her body was retrieved, they ended up sending it out for an autopsy to find out what was her COD, her cause of death. When the report came back, it came back that her COD was from strangulation. This is when the investigators went to Jesse so they could question him again. This time, Jesse added a few details to his story that he didn't tell the investigators before. He went on to tell them that when him and Grace got back up to his hotel room, that Grace began to ask him for very rough relations. He told the investigators that she wanted him to do these things, okay? And he said that he accidentally went too far with her while he was consensually doing that. He then told the investigators that he went to sleep, and when he woke up the next morning, he found Grace on the floor and she was gone. When the investigators asked him why he changed his story, Jesse said, "Because of her family. I want her family to know it wasn't intentional, but I also want her family to have closure." But the investigators still knew that he was lying. In the hours and the days after Grace's passing, Jesse did several things that made it look like it was not an accident at all. As a matter of fact, the very next day after Grace's life was taken from her, Jesse went online and he Googled things like what makes the hottest fire. He Googled rigor mortis. He Googled carpet cleaner. He Googled flesh-eating birds. And then he spent times on, listen to this, you guys. He spent time on dirty sites, okay? And took 7 different pictures that we know of her. And he was looking at these dirty sites while she was still there. I should probably throw in here that when he took these photos of her, he positioned her body into positions that he wanted her to be in. And just to take it to the next level, Jesse was still on Tinder, messaging other women to meet up for dates the very next day. When he went to meet up with one woman, Jesse told her some weird story about a man who had asked his girlfriend to have rough, and he accidentally ended her. Jesse also ended up renting a carpet cleaner, and he bought a suitcase that day as well. But that wasn't it for the security camera footage, because the very next day after the situation with Grace, the security camera footage at the hotel showed him wheeling his newly bought suitcase out of the hotel. This was the suitcase where Grace was found. The next morning after that, Jesse would go to a store and he bought a shovel, and then he went to the mountains to bury Grace. When he came back to the City Life Hotel, the police were there waiting for him. Jesse tried to turn around and leave without being seen by the cops, but they caught him, and this is when they ended up taking him into custody. After Jesse was taken away, his room was examined, and this is when they were able to find huge red stains. The stains were not red anymore because he cleaned them, but they put one of those lights on. Then the next day, which at this point was December 10th, the Prime Minister did go and make a public apology to Grace's family in a press conference. On January 16th of 2019, Jesse went in and he pled not guilty. His trial then started on November 4th of 2019. The prosecution went on to present their case, and they said that Jesse ended Gracie's life in cold, and they presented all the evidence that they had against him. Something that came as a surprise to some people, but definitely not as a surprise to others, is 3 different female witnesses that Jesse had also met through the app Tinder ended up testifying against him. Just 8 months before Grace's death, Jesse had allegedly AR'd another British tourist in his hotel room after a date that they had together. She went on to say that she never told anyone about this incident until she recognized Jesse on the news. Another woman came up to testify, saying that she met Jesse on the Tinder app, and then when she met with him, he told her that he was into feet, dominating, because it made him feel more superior and more in control. And then the third woman that testified was actually Jesse's ex-girlfriend. She testified saying that Jesse had threatened her many a times. She even said that he threatened her with a knife, and he forced her to participate in acts that she was definitely not comfortable with. But his defense team come up and presented the case, said it was a total accident. Imagine him getting up there and saying that she wanted this, that baby girl, 21 years old, like going out to travel and see the world, meets this guy that she thinks is handsome. He said all the right things on that date to get her back to that hotel room, and she thought she was going into her 22nd birthday with a night to remember. And then he gets up here, and his defense is that it was an accident, a result in the joking that she wanted. They even said that Jesse didn't end up calling the police afterwards because he panicked, so he buried her instead. But a doctor did come up and testify that Jesse would have had to apply significant pressure to Grace's neck for 4 to 5 minutes and to end up doing what he did, and that it couldn't have just been an accident. On November 22nd of 2019, the jury returned with a guilty verdict after just deliberating for only 5 hours. And Jesse was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in just 17 years. The justice system is different there than here in America. I know a lot of people overseas think ours are too harsh, but then when you hear of something like this and think in just 17 years a person like this could be back on the street, back using apps or whatever, it's awful to think about. Jesse was later convicted of 9 total charges of R and SA, threatening to attack other people and other stuff like that. And he ended up having 2 separate trials, one in October and one of November of 2020. And those cases were not connected to Grace's at all. Grace's family, obviously no amount of time, whether it's 17 years or 1700 years, is going to bring their precious daughter back. You think about, and I literally think about this all the time as a mother. She was going to be starting her career and starting a whole new venture in life. And so you just want her to have fun while she can. And everything stops. So her mother and her cousin actually went on to create a charity called Love Grace. And it works to help women affected by DV situations. Grace's father passed away from cancer not long after the trial in November of 2020. And I can't imagine how difficult that was on not only him, but the whole family. Such a devastating, sad situation. These dating apps are the new way that a lot of people are trying to connect. And as sucky as it is, you gotta be careful. You can't let your guard down too quickly. And it sucks because we should be able to. We ought to be able to go out and have fun. But unfortunately, it does happen. And one of the things that I am grateful for with doing these types of videos is it has really shown a lot of people that do certain things, they don't have a certain look, right? They're not all boogeyman's in a white van. Sometimes they look very well put together, well-mannered, and say all the right things. Other than that, I love you guys. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Y'all be careful out there. Pray for me, I pray for you, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.